I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here once again. My business partner, friend, and colleague, Mr. Nick Hodge, who's also an investor and the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is, believe it or not, the 276th episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. We're going to talk the Yukon. We're going to talk commodities. We're going to talk, not really presidential debates, but we'll touch on it for a little bit. We'll talk about the uneasiness in the uranium space despite great macro fundamentals. Ditto for lithium. A lot to get to every single week. First and foremost, Mr. Hodge, it's great to have you back. You were in the Yukon. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Gerardo. Fighting a bit of a cold. Have my recording set for the presidential debate. Eye on the markets, as it were. Had a Foundational Profits quarterly call-in with a bunch of subscribers today. So good to be back. Well done while I was gone with Michael Hudson and Hannon Metals. And happy to talk shop with you, as always, here at Bizarro World.
Well, let's get right into it. Look, you were just on a mine tour in the Yukon, vetting properties, connecting with other financiers and venture capitalists and newsletter writers and geologists and touring multiple companies. And obviously, we had a situation where there's been a pretty serious development that I think, unfortunately, is going to be extremely detrimental to the Yukon here, definitely in the near term. And I want to start by saying, there's a time and a place for laying blame, and I'm sure that will occur. And being accountable and as we all should be accountable. But a lot of people are really, really, really affected by this on a very real basis. Lots of people derive their income strictly from the mine, derive their income from the capital that is allocated and brought to the region by this mine. And so I want to start just by saying to those people that, my condolences and I can't help but just feel horrible for them. I know Twitter isn't the real world, but it's really disappointing to see people dancing on that mine's grave like 2 minutes after, right? Laying blame and with personal attacks. And again, I get it. I'm sure we're gonna get whatever we get out of the situation, how it developed, who knew, when they knew. A lot to get to there, but first and foremost, have to acknowledge everybody up there and say I wish everyone the absolute best, because it's a tough situation for those that are expecting a monthly check here and income to feed their families on a monthly basis. So let's start there. How was your trip, Nick?
The trip was really good. It's the Invest Yukon tour put on by the Yukon Invest, the Investment Alliance up there. They've been doing this for a number of years now, over a decade. I haven't had the chance to go. Kudos to them, Ann Lewis, for organizing it. It was streamlined and punctual and extremely well done, from the food and activities to the logistics of the tour itself. High caliber people there, investors, like you said, newsletter writers, other analysts, bank analysts, for example, high net worth individuals that manage their own money from all over the world, German fund managers, guys from the Netherlands, etc. So well represented and a well done tour, and had a lot of fun and learned a lot, right? Getting to go to these sites. I didn't stay for the whole time. I did sort of the first half. I got to go to 4 different sites and do a number of flyovers. So, and then I went to the conference where you have one-on-one meetings all day, sort of, Beaver Creek style, but just with the Yukon companies. So it was great to see people I hadn't seen in a while and catch up and to see the Yukon for the first time. There's a lot of people there that had been, multiple years in a row, or, some analysts that had been covering some companies for multiple years. And it was great to get insights from them as well, to see how the region had evolved over time and, their different views on the different projects and the region in particular. And then we were always being accompanied by geologists from the YGS, the Yukon Geological Survey. So on every flight, you had like an earpiece, and they would tell you what you were flying over, the geology and what claim it was and the history. So we learned a lot, and, saw all the alluvial mines, the placer mines, however you want to call those, and I didn't really realize the scale to which that goes on. I mean, some of those look like proper mines, man. Lots of excavators and D8, D10 cats moving dirt around. And, that's almost a point of contention up there because that has a much different permitting process, much easier to mine, placer mine, especially handed down through families over time as long as you keep them active. And yet they cause a great deal of disturbance as well, right? Speaking of the Victoria mine, or the Eagle mine owned by Victoria, where the leach pad collapsed. These alluvial mines create a lot of disturbance in and of themselves, and they aren't regulated the way that these underground and open pit heap leach mines are. Now, granted, the alluvial mines don't use chemicals, but they're still disturbing the ecosystem, a river ecosystem, aqueous ecosystem, nonetheless, right? So that was one thing I picked up on keenly for sure, is that there's a lot of mining going on up there, some of which is highly regulated and some of which is less so, and that's a point of contention. But either way, it's one of the largest sources of employment, like you say, right? The Victoria employed some 500 people, right? That's a large chunk when you're talking about Dawson City, one of the closest nearby towns, only having a population that's not much more than that itself, right? So I mean, what else do you want to talk about? So the geology is great. I mean, over time we've seen what the Yukon has. Whether that's Brewery Creek mine that's now been successfully reclaimed, or the coffee deposit that sits there, sort of ready to go if someone wants to do it. And so, look, people up there are trying to do good work. People up there are trying to make the mines work, and yet it seems really difficult, right? And it seems really difficult for a lot of reasons, whether that's the infrastructure, which is getting better, but, still not quite there. There is, electric, but there's not enough electric going to it. They have some small dams. There are plans to upgrade that infrastructure to send more electricity first of all, to connect that grid to the BC grid, which it currently is not, and then they can get excess power, hydropower, et cetera, from BC to that grid. And that's a big deal for powering these projects cleanly, because there's still a lot of diesel generators and LNG conversion and things like that. So that all factors into it. I'm sort of rambling, but I feel like all this detail is important. There's a lot of support services, whether it's pilots or, fuel supplies or construction of camp, the equipment and things. So yeah, it's very crucial for the region. And it's unfortunate that the Eagle mine is, not operational now, and we'll have to have significant investment just to clean it up. And we still don't have a lot of detail on that, right? So the last we heard was sort of the day after it happened, and that it wasn't contained, and we haven't really heard anything since. There's been a number of downgrades. As I read a couple of analyst reports estimating anywhere from 75 to 100 million in cleanup costs. With Victoria specifically, they had some hedge production. They had a lot of inventory on that pad. They've got some debt payments to pay that, now they can't sell that inventory because that inventory doesn't exist. It's not on the pad anymore. So there's some implications there. I listened to an interview that Rick Rule gave, talking about how this isn't going to kill mining in the Yukon because of how crucial it is for employment, et cetera. And I obviously appreciate that point of view and Rick's experience. And at the same time, I can't help but realize that, these permitting processes already take a long time and are being, looked at in more detail, and are going to be looked at in even more detail. And I feel take even more time now, post this event. So there is implications for the other projects, and the market has reflected that. Lots of other stocks are off, some 5 to 10% in the region. And yeah, I think it was a sombering day. So that was a lot. I said a lot there. Happy to drill down on any of that, I guess. But what else do you want to know?
No, I think that's a very, very concise overview of the trip and the sentiment, and, kind of sets the table for what comes next. What comes next that I'm looking for is most definitely, getting to the accountability part. I mean, at the end of the day, mistakes happen. It's going to be really, one way or the other. I think it's going to be really important to just get to the truth about, how it happened, what happened, and go from there. But again, in the meantime, first and foremost, to everybody out there, I wish everybody nothing but the best. And look, we write checks in this business knowing damn well that it is high risk and high reward. It's why we're in the business, right? I have to say this. The market is rewarding quality exploration work right now and quality discoveries. Ramp Metals is a damn good example, right? They hit a hole. Let me give you the exact numbers. One hole, 7.5 meters of 73.55 grams per ton gold in Saskatchewan. The stock went from 15, 16 cents to as high as 80 cents in a hurry off of one drill hole. It is absolutely critical for companies that have the treasury and have the technical acumen to get out there and continue to look for these discoveries, because the market wants the discoveries. And so, look, I had a lot of friends and family members reach out this past week, subscribers. I've had people on Twitter reach out. Uranium is still in a consolidation. A lot of the equities are at 52-week lows, despite the fact that the spot price is still flirting with the $85 level. And again, it looks like 80 to 90 is the new floor. So I think there's a hell of an opportunity in the uranium equities. Again, I want to encourage companies, especially those I wrote checks to continue the exploration work, to continue, looking at the cycle, because we are most definitely in a bull cycle. One consolidation doesn't break a bull trend. And I know it can be frustrating as all for all of us. Look, Patriot went from $17, almost $18 to it's struggling to keep above water the $5 level. Executing beautifully, cashed up. Kudos to the team for taking the money when they were able to get it, raising it at a premium. And, now we're going to do some serious step up drilling at CV13 on that new high grade Vega zone. Aggressive is a key word there, because I think we're really going to start seeing just the scale of what that is. And then we're going to vector towards CV5 and see if this whole thing, connects, like a lot of us have speculated in the beginning. I say all that to say it hasn't mattered that they've executed beautifully in the field and that they keep knocking it out of the park with drill results and in technical studies and, a resource estimate, an updated one coming here soon, and a maiden one for CV13. All of those are catalysts that in a better market would have the stock at new all-time highs. Not the case. You're going to have to sit on your $5 shares and ride it out. Do I believe in the lithium fundamentals mid to long term? Absolutely. Uranium? Absolutely. Do I believe Patriot sees new all-time highs again? Absolutely. Crystal ball? I've been way off on that. So when moon? No answer for y'all. Don't know when moon. I do know the quality of the deposit. I know it's tier 1. I know the team is top notch. I could say that for several companies. We had this discussion with Bravo Mining when it dipped to $1.48. It sits right at the $4 level a couple of months later. So again, on the back of a copper discovery that potentially is a game changer for the company. So to the companies out there that listen and watch and are asking for capital, as a check writer, as someone that believes in the sector, you got to keep doing the work, and you got to keep on giving us shots on goal for the discovery. And if not, capital is going to dry up and you deserve to go away. So we've had several people reach out asking to be sponsors on the site and on Resource Stock Digest. And my response is always the same. Well, what catalyst do you have in the second half of the year? Well, we think market conditions are going to improve. Okay, yeah, but what catalyst do you have in the second half of the year? And if I can't get an answer, I don't want to help tell the story, because it's tough enough as it is, right? Most of the companies that are drilling are going to miss. It's tough enough when they're doing honest work and doing the studies and the soil sampling and the geo work and all of that stuff. You still have misses in this business. So if you're just hoping for better market sentiment and you're chasing trends from copper to uranium to copper again to gold, we're not the group to tell that story. And so I say keep doing the work, y'all, but discoveries are being rewarded in this market. And I'm looking forward to a phenomenal second half that erases a lot of these gains. Again, Bravo Mining, perfect example, up 186% in a couple of months. Being down 50, 60% on a position is nothing in the junior space, and especially if you can pull out a Patriot every couple of years. So yeah, that's my rant on exploration and discoveries and what is being rewarded. It applies to the lithium space. It applies to the uranium space. It applies to the gold space. No coincidence. Mawson Gold is near 52-week highs again. Merging with Southern Cross Gold, its 51% owned subsidiary, again, on the heels of a discovery. Capital is looking to allocate. Capital is looking to being allocated. It needs something to allocate to. Gone are the days where you're just going to get dollars because you have a good team. Those days are past. Like, you're going to stick around with your $3 to $5 million market cap until you actually get out there and do something, improve something. So a lot of opportunity out there for everybody that's reached out. That's kind of, they're taking a little bit of a hit in the portfolio here in the last 6 months. And this is part of the course, y'all. Part of the course. We have bull markets springing up all over the place in the commodity space. So let's get to the commodity space, right? We have gold dipped below 2,300 quickly with the dollar index right at 106. Recaptured that beautifully. Closed today at 23.26. Silver hasn't recaptured 30. It's up to 28.93 today. Thoughts on gold and silver, chartist Nick?
I'm going to go backwards first, and then we can get to precious metals prices. So, there's a lot of people doing good work. You talk about doing the work. There's people doing good work in the Yukon, and I didn't have an interest in Victoria. I wasn't a shareholder, didn't have a recommendation, but was a shareholder and still am, because I haven't sold my shares of Banyan Gold, which is the next door neighbor. And, like some of the management teams up there and some of the projects, there's a lot of different geologies. There's a lot of different commodities, right? You've got silver mines and gold projects. I mean, Hecla operates underground silver mines up there, right? The Keno Hill district. And there have been wins up there in ATAC was sold last year, Graham Downs company, and he's having success with his new company with the drill bit Cascadia on gold, copper, porphyries, right? So, there are people up there doing the work, and it's sad to see them all affected by one unfortunate event. And I guess, I would say, you mentioned that we write checks, and now at least for me, we manage. And so that's like a little inside baseball, right? It stings in the short term. We'll see how long those delays, are, and ultimately what opportunities they create, because, just thinking through it, if it's going to be a black eye for open pit heap leach, and you've got Hecla in the area doing the underground mining, well, there's other processing technologies that can be used that don't have to necessarily be heap leach. And so, maybe it's an opportunity for Hecla to consolidate the entire region. And then you got to think, well, what companies is that going to be a benefit for? And, that's at least the analysis that I do, and I'm sure some of what you do in the resource sector as well, right? And
yep.
The point I wanted to make is, it's a risky business, and we've had success over time at mitigating that risk and having some outsized wins that allow our average win and our upside to be good, better than average, and preserve and make our capital grow, right? And we'll continue to do that. So, and no matter what events come. So, you're talking about gold and silver. Gold, it remains to be bullish. It's pulled back close to the $2,300 level, despite the dollar being at 106. And you've got a bit of a bifurcation in the interest rates, I would say, with the 10-year yield breaking down a little bit while the 2-year goes sideways. So you've likely had a drying up of central bank buying to some extent, as well as that retail buying that was coming out of China. But technically, gold remains bullish, and so showed strength as it bounced off support at 2,300. So that is your level. It's a nice round number, and gold will be bullish as long as it stays above that, and it is bullish now. Silver remains bullish too. Copper is probably more interesting to look at. It's broken down a bit below 450, and so it's sort of right on the edge. And for my money, it's a buying opportunity. We'll see if copper breaks down. I think it has a narrative problem right now, and I sort of went through that in the foundational profits call it, with China slowing down over the past couple of months, and people wondering what the catalyst or the growth is going to be for copper. And I went on to say that still there's lots of large economies, some of the largest in the world, that are at all-time highs and growing, like India and the USA, etc. So. We'll see what the chart says. Let's check back in on copper next week. But, for me, it's a pullback in the commodities that remains to be bought, and they are still largely bullish. And that includes uranium. You mentioned at the sort of 83 level. I showed a chart on that as well. And it went to that level earlier this year, gave us sort of a false breakout, and is now seemingly doing the double bottom thing, which I know you love, at around $83. So,
I love double bottoms, Nick, and I cannot lie.
long bullish on uranium, and those equities remain buy rated. So, that's that.
All right, we have to talk Fission uranium, core position. in the monthly letter portfolio has done very well for us. We're up, I forget what we're up. I'll tell you, we're up almost 100% on that. It announced that Paladin Energy is looking to acquire it. Interesting offer, interesting suitor, and really watching the next week or two to see if that deal is consummated or if we don't get a competing offer. We all knew Fission was on the block and a clear takeout target. I didn't believe Paladin would come in with that offer, and if I'm being honest, I didn't believe, though I understand, but I didn't believe that Fission would accept a 118. Equivalent was 130 when it was made a 130 per share offer, given the fact that the uranium fundamentals are so bullish. Now, look, in fairness to the company, I've known them for a while. Ross is great at what he does. Obviously, the team over there has done phenomenally well for its shareholders in advancing and developing that project. And look, the reasoning that the company gave for accepting the offer is that you're getting, shares in a much more liquid company that has much more exposure to the uranium upside. Fair point. It's a logical statement. I guess my retort would be, well, yeah, but you could get that at a higher price as well, right? You could still have the upside of the liquidity, and the upside of the leverage to a better uranium space, while also negotiating for a higher price. Again, as a shareholder, you always want more than what you get. That's just the way that it goes. But congrats to the Fission team for sticking through, back to my point earlier, right? Sticking through a tough several years in the uranium space, doing the work, adding value, and being around for the eventual re-rating. You have to do that. And again, as a speculator in the space, for those of you that listen that are down a bit, you have to know how to weather the storm during these downturns and consolidations where it's boring, and just a little bit of selling has you down 10, 20% of the week on the week. It's a part of the process. It's how it goes. I often use the baseball parlance, right? The analogy there. And look, my Cubs started the first month of the year in first place. Fast forward a month and a half later, we are in last place. It changes quickly, folks. And here's a funny stat. Now I'm just rambling, but if games ended in the 7th inning, we would still be in first place. We've lost 18 games after leading in the 7th inning. It's a Major League Baseball worst. So for my Cub fans out there, I'm feeling it. We've been hit by a ton of injuries. We don't have a closer that we can rely on. So I'm hoping that management, which, puts out a product that has sold out tickets every game, some of the highest cost per ticket per game, and is extremely profitable. I hope they allocate some of those dollars to going and getting us a closer and a couple of big bats, because we absolutely need that to come back in the second half of the year. So anyhow, that's how the junior market is, like being a Cubs fan. This is the way it goes. You got to ride the cycles out and make the adjustments as you go. Thoughts on Fission, Nick?
I saw the Orioles drop 5 in a row as well, so that's one of the better teams in baseball as well. So cuts both ways sometimes, for sure. Thoughts on Fission? I was building some shelves in my basement not too long ago, and I came across this gem right here, which is a fishing lure that was handed out on the Patterson Lake South Tour in the summer of 2013, which I still had in my basement there. And that's how long I've been involved with Fission Uranium, right? Since flying up there to see it over 10 years ago. And so we talk about how long these things take sometimes. And in the case of Fission, will end up taking even longer from an asset perspective, because, it's at the feasibility stage, but still has, permitting, financing, and construction ahead of it. So you're in this for, 15 to 20 years, just to give people a sense of geologic time scale, right? I was still an owner of Fission shares and saw the announcement the other day. And, it's good to see M&A in the space, right? I was a little bit taken aback, like you, that it was Paladin. I mean, that's a big project to swallow. That's a big project to finance and construct, given that a portion of it is beneath a lake. And so nonetheless, a developable project, but will take a lot of capital. So I, too, am interested to see if someone else comes in, either some other larger developer or consortium of developers, or you had mentioned to me maybe some murmurs of, more diversified energy companies being interested in the uranium space like days of old. And so all that would be interesting. I think for now I'm content to keep my Fission shares and participate in the upside through either the Paladin acquisition if it's consummated, or a bidding war if that happens, or Fission if the deal ends up being called off. So for now I'm being patient. I think that's a very obviously large, high grade, globally significant deposit that I'll continue to own the shares. Have done well over time with uranium acquisitions and staying in the market and taking my payment in shares, whether that's Azarga and URZ or after that Encore and Azarga. So and again, think that uranium prices are sort of at the bottom of their trend and of their recent range at the $83 level, and still think uranium has a significant upside to go. And we haven't mentioned NextGen yet, which is the next door neighbor, and also a very large asset. It would seem to make sense to share some of the costs alongside each other. And so either through combining them now, or having Paladin make some sort of agreements or foray into that later. So still a lot to be determined, but good to see billion-dollar deals in the junior uranium space for sure. And I'm watching it closely as a shareholder.
Agreed. I have to talk lithium a bit because everybody thinks lithium's dead, and I'm seeing a lot of people that missed the first run up and didn't make money on it come out and celebrate the death of lithium. And I have bad news for y'all. It's just an opportunity for people like myself to double down on a lot of positions and actually, get some more lithium exposure for that eventual turn back up. It's called being a contrarian, folks. It doesn't feel great, for example, to be down, 60% from all-time highs on positions, but let's do a 2-year chart like I do for everybody, and then let's talk in a year and see where we're at. Couldn't have been underscored more by Volkswagen looking to invest $5 billion in Rivian and to develop, obviously, technology and battery-powered vehicles. That is a huge endorsement about the direction that the lithium price in North America, because I think there will be a day where there are different price mechanisms. Don't want to get into that right now. But it's a huge endorsement for the demand that is to come. Short term has to find its legs. I absolutely believe that we're in month 2 or 3 of a bottoming process. We've seen the head fake a couple of times. We've seen capitulation a couple of times. This past week wasn't the most pleasant of weeks because you had a combination of Australia having tax loss selling, and then you had people on the Canadian side, reacting to some tax changes there and capturing either gains or losses on that front before a new law went into effect. So it was kind of like a triple whammy, right? We did have a day where the lithium futures were up some 7%. It'll be an interesting next couple of months, and it'll be an interesting second half of the year. Again, there are bargains in the space. Patriot is a bargain. Q2 Metals, with the project that they now look to have, really starting to figuring it out. That is an absolute buy at these levels, in my opinion. I'm a buy shareholder of both. So that's my lithium junior rant there. Thoughts on the deal? Thoughts on Volkswagen coming in and saying, yeah, we have $5 billion for battery powered vehicles and technology?
Well, they're not going away, right? I mean, these globally large auto manufacturers have committed in a big way to the lithium battery supply chain and manufacturing electric vehicles, from Tesla to BID to Ford to GM to Volkswagen to Volvo to Porsche to Lamborghini to et cetera, right? Like, it's not going away. The timeline may have been extended and the lithium market was overheated, certainly at $80,000 a ton of lithium carbonate, but
sure.
Nonetheless remains a very real transition in terms of auto powering and not just auto powering, the cell phones and wearables and satellites and all sorts of stuff, right? I just saw CATL powering a plane with batteries this week. So, the lithium market is here for the long term. I still own a lot of lithium equities, including Patriot and including Arcadium and including Critical Elements and some private ones and a few others. So I'm not worried about the long term of the lithium market. And What I want to say a couple of things. So I was writing, I was talking about allocation today in my foundational profits talk, because allocation and position size matters, right? Somebody was asking, how does the performance of foundational profits measure up against the S&P this year? And if you take it on an equal weighting, the closed portfolio is, I don't know, off the top of my head, up about 10 or 11% or something like that. But if you take it on the position size, which is how I manage that portfolio and what I write about in the monthly issues, I show you exactly how much I own. So I went and did the calculations after and did the portfolio based on the actual position size that we own. And, we're ahead of the S&P by 1%. And that plays out over time on the more speculative side of things too, right? Over time, the things you and I have done, you certainly on the private placement end of the spectrum in the resource space, have returned remarkable results. Now, have they all been winners? Of course not. And when you come in definitely matters, right? So a couple of things there. One, you just can't come into to one stock, buy it, and decide that either we suck or the stock sucks or the junior mining sector sucks, right? That's not a large enough sample size to put it in statistical terms. The two, you have to follow more than one stock over, more than 1 year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We just talked about being at Fission in 2013 and still owning the shares. So, you have to follow and get in tune with what we do over time. And, there's no bones about the fact that has worked and continues to work, by, my bottom line, your bottom line, and the bottom line of subscribers that have been with us over time. To come in and say that the lithium is trash, or like you say, to gloat about the death of lithium is either short-sighted or, you didn't make money in the 2017 run. You weren't in Lithium X with me for 1,500%, or the buyout of Millennial Lithium for 400 or 500%, or Critical Elements Lithium at 30 cents to over $3, or Patriot Battery Metals at 16 cents to $17, or 32
Advantage
cents to
Lithium,
$17.
triple digit winner.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
we could go on.
You know what I mean? So anyway, the lithium space will be fine over time. And in fact, we continue to write checks. You and I were talking about a private company that we're involved in and that has great, assets in Quebec. And so somebody was asking about lithium just during my foundational profits call, and we've mentioned some recent news items. You talked about Volkswagen, but this morning when I woke up, I had a press release about the German government agencies giving grants to Rocktech Lithium, which is partnered with Mercedes. They're giving them 100 million euros.
100 million.
That's a company with $150 million market cap. So the government money is still going to come. The factories are still going to be built, and content with my lithium holdings over time, right? We go back to position size and time frame and expectations.
Agreed. What are you watching for this week, Nick? I guess, I don't think, but maybe I'm wrong. Are you watching the Trump and Biden debate?
That's a good place to end. Yeah, I set my recording before I left the house this morning. So
did you?
I obviously watch for entertainment value. I love that stuff. So, I don't know how it'll affect my vote or what, but I'm not going to miss the next Huck Tua moment if it occurs in the presidential debate. That's for sure.
Spit on that thing. Shout out to Mookie. Oh, God. I want to wish everybody. What am I watching? I'll tell you what I'm watching. I'm watching for assays from Bravo Mining. I am watching for assays from the Vega Zone over the next couple of weeks from Patriot Battery Metals. I'm excited for that. What else? I have no horse in the race, but I am watching Ramp Metals. I'm rooting for the company. I think, much like Southern Cross Gold and its discovery at Sunday Creek, a new high-grade discovery that makes people money when everyone is bored with gold, despite the fact that it's a 23-25, is good for the sector, and hopefully will encourage teams to continue exploring. And man, I'm watching Hannon. I mean, Hannon is now, on a share basis, my single largest position by quite a bit. I am heavily levered to Hannon's fate, much like I was heavily, tied into with Patriot. And so, still a Patriot shareholder. Our group still has the bulk of the shares. But we have a whole hell of a lot of Hannon, and I think what's developing there, it was very intentional to have the podcast last week with Michael Hudson. What's developing there, I think, is very special. I think it's overlooked. I don't think it's going to be very long before people start realizing that Michael Hudson and the team have an entire belt of copper, gold, and silver discoveries just waiting to be had. And so I'm waiting on assays from what internally we're calling the monster, right? And that's the Previsto area, which is being de-risked as we speak. And then we're prioritizing targets to see where to permit. There's stuff just oozes out of the ground all over the place. And then they have some assays pending on some of that oozing coming out of the ground in the walls. And I am really excited to see what those numbers look like. I anticipate we get those over the next week. Financing just closed, wrote the biggest check of my career. I have friends and family in that financing. I know you wrote a check. Our group wrote a check. So again, it's as transparent as we can get. We tell you when the stock is we wrote the check at 25 cents. We just wrote a check at 35 cents. And let's come back in a year and let's see where we're at. I think it's going to be exciting.
Let's go. The exploration is exciting, and high quality exploration with those sort of, ground and soil results is super exciting. So, and I know we're trying to get there in the fall for sure. So exciting times ahead for Hannon.
Absolutely. I'm supposed to remind you every week to go to dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe for all of our ranting, ravings, hot Tua jokes, insights, witty puns for Mr. Hodge, and all of the great information from our talented group of editors. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was the 276th episode of Investing in Bizarro World. Have a great week out there, everyone. Be kind. I know the whole little election thing gets people on the rocker, man. I've already had a couple situations out here where I'm like, man, I don't even like any of these guys. Like, it's not worth it, dude. Just stay away from me. Be safe out there, and have a good one, y'all.
See you guys.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.